Before we move forward, I want to let you know that this particular section is a little bit more lengthy than our previous section. It's broken up in a number of tools. So we're going to be moving through these concepts a little bit quickly. But don't worry, you can always go back and review this content so that you can take the time that you need to really get these concepts right. Our focus today is just to introduce these concepts to you so that you have a basic understanding of what they are and how to use them. So with that, let's jump right on in. I want to discuss one of the misfortunes that a lot of product developers fall into, especially early on in the product development journey. So as passionate product developers, we make a lot of assumptions about what we think our customer wants. Most founders, most entrepreneurs, they develop these ideas of what they think their customer want. And we go out and we develop products based off, those concepts. But we don't know what the customer wants. All right, we're just the people who are developing these products. And a lot of times we make that mistake in believing that what we think the customer wants is the right thing. So we move forward with developing minimum viable products and developing and improving on products that we haven't validated that is something that the customer wants. So in this process of moving forward on concepts that we think are correct, we exhaust a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of resources, and we waste a lot of valuable opportunities to build products that we think that the customer wants. As a product developer, it's our job to identify all the hypotheses that we have and to put in place standards in which we can validate these hypotheses in each and every component of our product. All right, each and every aspect of our product has to be something that we know. Each and every segment in our business model canvas, each and every step in our process development canvas, each and every piece of our value proposition canvas, it has to be something that we know that is 100% factual data, something that we know is true without a doubt. And the only way to get factual data is to conduct research so that we can gather information that provides us data on the hypotheses that we set. All of that to say, in the beginning as product developers, our job is to set a hypothesis. And as we set that hypothesis and develop a minimum viable product, we have to validate these hypotheses with our customers. So taking these concepts and all the things that we don't know that is 100% true, we have to validate that with our customer to ensure that it's 100% true. Because what usually happens down the line is that if you don't validate this information, you eventually ended up building a product that nobody wants. And good products aren't built on false information. Actually, scams are built on false information. So as you go through your product development journey, you want to make sure that you are testing all of your hypotheses to make sure that it's validated. So speaking of hypotheses, as we mentioned before, a hypothesis is nothing but an educated guess. And our job as product developers is to turn those hypotheses into facts. In order to do that, we need to build and foster positive relationships with our customers so that we have the opportunity to introduce our product to them and gather information from them so that we can collect data that shows us in what ways that we can make alterations to our product. The more data that we can collect about our hypotheses, the better that we can begin to validate our results. So speaking of data, question is, what is data? Before we can start talking about how to use data to validate our hypotheses, we need to understand what data is. And essentially, data is the characteristics or information that are collected through some sort of observation. So whether it's a survey or a direct observation or through conversation or a phone call or whatever the case may be, data is the information that you collect through those observations. And as a product development expert, the most valuable tool that you have at your disposal during your product development journey is your data. Data can be generated and collected on a number of different topics related to your product, and the more data that you have, the better that you can begin to understand what it is that your customer wants and how to validate what it is that you're trying to offer with your product and the product's value proposition. So data is something that can be generated again on a number of topics, and you can generate data at any point of your product development journey, whether you're developing a design or trying to bring your product to market. Each and every stage of your product development journey is an opportunity for you to collect data from. So there's two types of data. There's primary data, or the data that you collect, data that you own, data that originates from your efforts. And then there's secondary data. That's data that's been collected from somebody else, that's been collected for some other purpose, but you found it and you're using it for your particular issue. But whatever type of data that you're collecting, whether it's primary or secondary, data comes into two formats. So you have quantitative data, or data with numbers. All right, this is a lot of your statistical data, a lot of your percentage data. This is data that you can measure with numbers objectively. And then you have your qualitative data. Qualitative data is usually data in a narrative form or with words, some data that can't be easily measured. So examples of qualitative data is, like we mentioned, narrative, words, maybe some pictures, or things that aren't numbers. All right, so you have your two formats of data: your data that comes in numbers and your data that does not come in numbers. All right, so why is data important? So if you're collecting data, data is important because with your data you have all the information necessary to make data-driven decisions about the improvements, the changes, and the modifications related to your product. All right, so the more quality data that you are able to collect, the more quality data you are able to use, and the more data that you're able to use, the better you are able to make data-driven decisions on which direction you need to go with advancing your product. Additionally, when you use data, you have the ability to use factual information to make a valid or make validation of your hypotheses. With your data, you have the information needed to make educated decisions based off your findings and to draw an accurate conclusion from your data. So it's important not only for you to collect your data, but it's really important to understand how to analyze and how to study your data, because the more information you can pull from the data that you collect, the better you can make data-driven decisions and the more validated your product becomes. So